Hello everyone, hope you're doing alright. Today we want to quickly talk through hard mode IP-CPT. The comp you're run for this is 6 DPS and 2 healers. You don't really need a tank for this fight. You really need the DPS for the burn. So, the opener, the one thing you need to be worrying about is that you want to be managing your large circles and your small circles. Large circles should go to the outside of the room so that way they don't take up half of the entire encounter, and the small circles you really don't have to worry about. Once the large circles go off, they will apply a dot to the target, so if you have a cleanse, you should probably cleanse your friends, or just wait for your healers to do it for you. Now, you're going to see that these fireballs are slowly extending around the room. The fireballs themselves do a moderate amount of damage. However, the real mechanic for them is that they will apply a debuff that makes you take more damage from the boss mechanics. So you want to be keeping those stacks of debuffs as low as physically possible by not standing in fire. Eventually, if you hit the boss enough, he will retreat back up into the sky, and it will be on you to get back to your consoles. Now, in every corner of the room, there's going to be a console. This console will have a color associated with it. You want to pre-assign people to be at each console. There is blue, green, red, and purple. Droids will spawn with little shields on them that also happen to have a little symbol and color above them. So, when the droid has a blue symbol above it, you need to click blue on the consoles, and that will slowly turn the shield off. If you do not disable the shield and destroy the droids in time, they will detonate, give you a stack, and then do a large amount of damage. So, you want to be very quickly sending people to their corners when they spawn, and you want to click the colors in the order that they are called out in. One person will be responsible for calling out what color the droid needs. Everyone else needs to shut up. Do not talk during this phase unless you are calling out a color. Now, the secret of these droids is that they spawn 3 colors to unlock them. So if you can count, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, okay, 2 droids are dead, we come and kill the rest of these. For these Overlord enforcers, they apply a stacking debuff to the quote-unquote tank, which makes them take more damage from the target. So you can see here, Mr. Alanov, he has 3 stacks of debuff, which means he would take a lot of damage from the Overlord enforcer. But do note that these stacks do not apply across the droids. The Overlord enforcer and the Inferno enforcer do not share the debuff. So if you are tanking the Overlord, you can swap up and take the Inferno droid if you need to. This is where having multiple people with taunts really helps out, because then they can take the droid over in case, your tanky DPS isn't as tanky as you thought he was. You can kind of get away with, only running 6 DPS. Once you get out here and you kill all the droids, just run around, kind of stack up for heals here. Try to help out your healers as much as possible. There's a lot of damage going out in this fight the entire way around, so if you can stack just for a little while, it would be very, very nice for them. Clean up the turrets, and now we go back into phase with the boss sitting down here and the fire going out. Now, the really convenient part about this fight this section of the fight is that the boss room will be split essentially into giant checkerboards here, and so it's going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth a couple times. So if you just walk into where the fire was, the fire will not reappear there within, a reasonable amount of time. Don't stand in fire. Take the big circles out to the outside of the room, and then keep the little circles in the inside of the room and make way for your big circles. Don't stand in fire. Again, there looks like there's a lot going on here, and there is for sure, but the more you actually sit down and do the boss, the more you learn the patterns about what the fire is actually doing, and it makes it easier to dodge these circles as they're coming out, and it makes it easier to dodge the massive fireballs as they're coming out as well. So now just survive, live, don't stand in red if you can help it. Now, in this phase, you want to get 3 droids dead, which means you need to click 9 times in a very short window. So you need to be on your buttons very, very quickly. I will shut up during the next buttons phase to show you what we're talking about here, but you want to try to kill all 3 of these droids as quickly as possible. It's a very, very tight check. So if you are clicking buttons during this phase, or in fact at any point if you are clicking buttons, for the majority of the time you should sit here, don't look at anything else, and literally just prepare to click your button. We get very lucky here and we kill that droid with 0.02 seconds left. So it's a very, very, very tight check. Do not mess around and say, oh, I can definitely walk away from my button and cleanse my friends or do damage. No, just literally stare at your button. So now here's a sample of clicking button phases really quickly.
Purple. Green. Purple. Blue, come kill.
Now, you only kill 2 droids in that phase. You're just going to pop defensive cooldown for the final droid when it explodes. You can see we're all going to get a stack here and take a fair bit of damage. That's totally fine. This time you're going to nuke down the Inferno Enforcer first, and then swap on over to the Overlord Enforcer, and you should be ready to rock and roll. You can kind of ignore the turrets from here on out, like they're going to exist. You can try to clean them up if you are melee and you're walking out with some fireballs, but for the most part, you just enter into the burn phase here. So once IP comes back down, you enter into a little checkerboard phase. What a little checkerboard phase is that it's a massive checkerboard, half fire and then half safe. Now, fortunately, because it's a checkerboard, you just walk back and forth between 2. Assuming that you saw which one was on fire last, you just walk into that one and you should be fine for the foreseeable future. In this phase, it's all about living. If you can literally just live, that you'll be fine. Getting to burn is kind of the hardest part of the fight. The actual burn itself is just a straight DPS race, which is made a lot easier by having 6 DPS. But the important thing here is literally just don't die. If you can afford not to die, you should be perfectly fine. And again, you know where the fire is going to be spawning next. You know where it already was, so it shouldn't be too hard to stand outside of fire during this phase. Eventually, you're going to push down into a super burn mode where IP-CPT will begin his cast. Once that cast begins, you have entered into Crazy Burn. The floor will go random. Literally just watch the floor, and if it's on fire, don't stand in it. And if it's not on fire, do stand in it. And then if the IP reaches the end of this cast and he's still alive, he will destroy everyone and wipe the entire raid. So it's a straight DPS race down to the bottom here. This is where having 6 DPS really makes this fight very easy because it's a pretty tight check still. You just focus on staying alive though for the most part and you should be fine. We did not really pump during this phase as we might want to. We more just stayed alive and managed to make it there to the end. However, this is pretty consistently a relatively tight check. So just try to pump as much damage as possible. Don't stand in fire and you should be fine. There is a lot happening in this boss for sure. So just be aware that it's just going to take time, repetition, but you will eventually start to learn the floor patterns. You'll figure out where you should be standing and you should be fine. So if you have any questions, let me know down in the comment section below. I'd be happy to answer them as soon as possible. Other than that, take care. Bye-bye.